Thank you, Mr. Parker. The chair now yields to the gentlelady from Wyoming, Mrs. Lummis, to introduce our final witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted that Russ Boardman has joined us today. He's an elected Conservation District Supervisor from the Shoshone Conservation District in northwest Wyoming. When he left home, it was 8 degrees. We've had a very cold, snowy April, and I tell you, it is a great blessing because we have had such a horrible drought in Wyoming, and that snow, regardless of the cold and the wind and the temperatures, is an absolute blessing. He's done something that's very difficult for a person to do, and that is start a farm and ranch from scratch. Not marry it, not inherit it, but rather start it from scratch. And this after a distinguished career as a teacher, and I just have a lot of respect for what he's doing. As I said, he's an elected Conservation District Supervisor. Now in Wyoming, that is a very important position. We have 34 conservation districts. They're governed by 5 elected officials. And in every district, their statutory responsibilities include issues such as conservation of water, conservation of soil and water resources, utilization of water, using a watershed approach. They're frequently have cooperating agency status and working with the federal government. And I want to emphasize the word cooperating. It's not coordinating agency status when you're working with the federal government. The statute, NEPA, says cooperating. And cooperation implies a two-way street. You're cooperating with each other. Unfortunately, more and more, we find that it's a coordinating. The feds will touch base with some sort of local group and call that cooperating. It's a two-way street, and these people know how to cooperate. So I am delighted and want to commend to the your attention Russ Boardman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Lummis, for those gracious words. Chairman McClintock, Ranking Member Napolitano, and members of the subcommittee. I am Russ Boardman, an elected official in northwest Wyoming for both the Shoshone Conservation District and also the Deaver Irrigation District. I also am a former educator and an agriculture producer raising cattle and hay in one of the driest places in the United States. I'm located 2 miles south of the Montana border around Frannie, Wyoming, population 157. For a frame of reference of how important the water is in our area, the Bighorn River Watershed receives only 6 to 10 inches of precipitation a year, compared to here in the Potomac, 30 to 60 inches. My area of the Bighorn Basin is actually drier than Death Valley, receiving only 5 inches of precipitation a year. As you can imagine, there really isn't anything more important than our water resources. Ladies and gentlemen, water is the lifeblood for our communities. I'm pleased to be here today to share with you on-the-ground watershed work being implemented by local districts and the potential implications of Yellowstone River National Blueway designation. We do not believe that Blueway's designation is necessary, as we have locally driven watershed efforts in place to address multiple resource issues and benefits. Wyoming conservation districts are local units of government formed under Wyoming state statute. There are 34 local conservation districts in Wyoming, and our statutory responsibilities include stabilization of agriculture industry, protection of natural resources, such as conservation of soil and water resources, flood prevention, development, utilization, and disposal of water in our district. We're active in a variety of water quality management practices. You'll see most of those in my written testimony. They're quite lengthy to present at this time orally. We are active members of a technical steering committee guiding the development of total maximum daily loads, TMDLs, as required by the Clean Water Act. We also have participated pursuant to the National Environmental Policy Act as a cooperating agency in the Bureau of Land Management's Resource Management Plan, process for the Bighorn RMP, the USDA Forest Service forest planning process for both the Shoshone and the Bighorn National Forests. we understand that there's some consideration being given to nominating the Yellowstone River Watershed as a national Blueway designated, created through a secretarial order. Until our counterparts in Montana thankfully contacted us and to seek our inputs and thoughts, I and other local conservation districts were unaware of such a designation even existed. After we share and ask our input, we researched this designation, and I will share with you some of the concerns we have for this process. How does a designation that requires no public notice, no comment opportunity, and was created without coordinating or consulting with affected landowners or governments or states could result in increased coordination? The fact that my private property or my neighbor's private property and our watershed could be federally designated without any formal opportunity for input is totally inconceivable to me. We fail to see how a Blueways designation will enhance the overall waterway. In fact, we are concerned in Wyoming that the designation will hamper those efforts by creating fear, confusion, and controversy. Real conservation occurs at the grassroots level. If there is a commitment to grassroots conservation, then local efforts like this, once implemented by our conservation district, should be supported rather than trumped by a secretarial order. Furthermore, the national designation is part of a greater outdoor initiative and is to establish a community-driven conservation and recreation agenda. We aren't sure what that means, but from past experience, we know that federal designations does not correlate to community-driven conservation. Instead, they correlate to a top-down Washington directive with little or no input from the ground. Lastly, as we spend a tremendous amount of time on these management plans, we partnered with the Bureau of Rec, and we live in such an arid area. We worry about multiple use, water supplies, agriculture, hydropower, and many other water resource important to sustain our communities in such a arid region. Secretarial orders such as this do nothing but to interfere and detract from thoughtful, informed process that result in quality resource management. We are pleased to see that the Secretary has communicated to the Wyoming delegation that no designation would affect Wyoming without the support of our state, because frankly, I don't see how we call federal designation over 44 million acres without any public notice or input community-driven conservation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.